Oh man, are you all ready for this? The over an hour and 15 minutes of full-on unscripted interview bliss with two of the developers over at Mainframe. We were able to get Petur and Sulka on board and talking to us. It's the first time in over an entire year since they've been on the channel. So hello and welcome back, all of you amazingly professional consumers of Pax Dei and Pax Dei related content out there. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and we are in for a treat today. We are going to be talking, let me just go down the list of everything that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking with the developers about knighthoods, baronies, kingdoms, feudal systems, religious systems, potentially guild systems, dueling, and that's only scratching the surface. There's an entirely new PvP map coming, Lyonesse 2.0, and there is a new PvP exclusive resource that you are going to need to get if you want to, wait for it, be able to participate in a new type of crafting that is enchantment. I know. We're going to learn about all of that and a whole lot more. So if this is your first time coming to the channel, this is what we do. We cover Pax Dei and Pax Dei related content. So hello and welcome. If you enjoy this video, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe so you can get notified whenever we come out with new Pax Dei and Pax Dei related content, and share with any of your friends who might be interested in learning more about the PvP system specifically, because that's what a lot of this interview is focusing around. That's what the next future updates for Pax Dei are going to be covering as well. If they would be interested in that, share this video with them. It helps the channel out. It helps your friends out because they're going to want to play this game with you. I just believe me. These are, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about what is to come in Pax Dei. So I hope all of you are too, and I hope you enjoy this over hour and 15-minute long interview with Mainframe. It doesn't get better than this. Mainframe, I do hope that we don't have to wait another year to have you back on the channel. Thank you again, especially Thyveen, Marie. Thank you for helping me organize this. Thank you to Petur and Sulka for enduring this interview. And really, we had a great time. I hope all of you enjoy it. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to myself to get this interview started. Enjoy. Hello and welcome back. Today we are joined by two exceptionally great guests on the channel. It's been a while, guys, since the last time we were able to get you here for an interview. But today I am welcoming back Petur and Sulka, two of our favorite developers over at Mainframe. So hello, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Yeah, good to be here again.
Yeah, glad to have you. So, how about we start off with, how are you guys doing? How are things going with the development process? And I feel like we have some really exciting stuff to be talking about here in a bit, but would love to just check in and see how are things going.
Right, sure. I guess I can take this. So yeah, so we, as you know, we've been in early access for a bit over a year, and we're like about to release a blog, which I guess might be out by the time you see this. For the, like, it's been super educational. We're like, when we went out, we were expecting to get a lot of feedback from the player base, and that obviously has happened. And the floodgates opened pretty much the day the game went live. And like a year ago, we were obviously like, I had ideas for what we'd like to put into the game over the year, and we published a long list of stuff we were working on or hoping to work on like soon after launch. And then obviously, because like as we've been saying all along, like we really want to listen to the players, and actually the volume of feedback just indicated that there were like some of the fundamental like systems that just needed a lot of work. And so the I guess as an example, like the amount of time we've been putting into making the combat system something that is a lot deeper and feels a lot better to play was a lot more than we were expecting at the time going into early access. And that obviously then meant that like us as a small team we weren't able to do like some of the items that we thought a year ago we would be doing. But overall, I was just looking at some of the like pictures and videos from the game a year ago, and it's amazing how much we've actually managed to develop it further, like in that like 12, 13 months. So as such, like I'm feeling pretty good about like how much we've been going ahead and like how much we've been able to improve the game over the year.
Yeah, and in terms of that, one of the things that I've found interesting is, since early access, we had this roadmap that came out, and it's kind of evolved and changed a little bit over since early access started to where we are now. And it feels like in some ways we've pivoted in different directions. In other ways, there's been some things that were on the roadmap that have been either come off the roadmap or maybe they've been put later down. There's been new things that have been added. I think one of the things that a lot of members of the community are interested and excited about were horses, and there was an update a while back that showed a picture of a mount and all of that. But in general, what have you seen changing on the roadmap since you started this journey in early access? And what features are you the most excited about to be getting developed or released in the future?
It's, to be honest, it's hard to pinpoint what changed along the way, just because like I can look at the things that we plan to do right after early access, like the things that we posted, and see like, we never got to those couple of things, but there were like good reasons for that. There was just a lot of we were trying to try to be opportunistic and like do things that we discover later on that we could do that would be a huge value to the player base, trying to address things that like you guys have been asking for, or like ideas that you come up with. And sometimes we also just like discover like that some things that we wanted to do were much harder and much more costly, and in the end didn't really serve the game as well as like doing three different things instead. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what those were in the past, but definitely like a lot of the and this also maybe a little bit going back to the first question as well, like how development is going. It is exciting to like feel that the pace of updates that we've been pushing out, like from when early access started until now, has kind of ramped up, and the team has gotten like more and more comfortable like putting things out more rapidly. And so I think especially in the last few months, like we've been able to put out more exciting things that I wasn't sure we were going to be able to put out before the summer, but definitely now in the next few months, like the things that we're looking at doing are things that we've been talking about for a very long, like talking about for years. Yeah, unsure how much of it we're going to talk about today, Sulka, but
yeah. Then I guess
I'll let you be the gatekeeper for that.
So as Peter basically alluded, is like we're not a huge team, and like there's only a limited number of things that we can be working on at any given time, and like the you mentioned horses, like we'd love to work on horses right now, but there's actually like getting a horse to work in a satisfactory way in the type of game that Pax Dei is actually a lot of effort. And right now, like some of the other things that we're working on, we're just basically deeming that it's a higher priority to get going. And the big lens that we've been like using like since the beginning of the project, and I still are looking into, is what are the biggest multiplayer improvements that we can do? Because like what we'd like to create is this like living environment where the play community is very tight knit and people depend on each other. And like you mentioned, like some of the upcoming systems with like things like the Feudal System, and actually like that will change the way people play the game in a way where you actually like belong deeper into the society of the people like in the world. And we're considering that to be more important in the ways that we'd like to see the game develop, rather than, for example, the horses. So it always comes down to the what's the capability of the team toward like how many things can we work on, and like trying to maximize like the direction of the game that we like to go.
Yeah.
Or
We try to maximize and kind of prioritize features that like allow you as a player to change how the world plays for other people, like strengthen the sandbox. The horse is something that we want just as much as the players, but it ultimately doesn't. It is very costly, and it doesn't actually change how it strengthens the setting, but it doesn't ultimately change very much how what you can do to the world, so to affect it for other people.
Yeah, it sounds almost like it's, you know, you have to weigh the usability of the game or the ease of use for some players with like mounts or being able to move around faster, and balance that against physical tools. A sandbox is great, but if you don't have any toys in the sandbox to, you know, build your sandcastles or I guess destroy other sandcastles of your friends, maybe we'll talk about that. But without having those tools available, then it's really just a box full of sand. And nobody wants to just go play in a box full of sand. They want things to do in that sandbox, right?
Yep.
So we alluded to the feudal system, but before we get to that, I did want to talk a little bit about what would come with that, being something that a lot of people have been discussing on the public Discord as well, which is Lyonesse 2.0. So let's talk about that a little bit, and you know, what can you share with what we can expect to see with Lyonesse 2.0, and you know, what, I guess I'll give a couple of directions that we can go. You know, why is this change necessary, and what actually is the change?
Right. Okay. So actually, the before we jump into those details, I guess I was thinking like maybe I'll just quickly explain like part of the thinking, like how we're thinking about the structure of the game overall. Where for years now we've kind of divided the game into 3 parts, and one is the crafting building parts of the game that you do mostly in the Heartlands, that forms the economic basis of like how the game actually plays, and where the goal is or has been that each one of the players should theoretically at least be able to find a niche that they want to supply in the market and like specialize in some crafting system, and then be very efficient about it, and then being able to like participate in a group of like making sure that like you can provide something to the group and they provide something for you. And obviously like we've been like changing the balance of the crafting a few times and trying to find the right level of dependencies between the different crafting professions to actually like really support this. The second is the like kind of the adventuring part, that obviously means a lot of like PvE, where players actually go into the adventures, like there's some risk reward in like being able to supply goods into the crafting system. So these are dependent. And the goal has been, again, here, that if somebody like really just loves PvE and they want to play that part of the game, they're like, by actually cooperating with other players, like being able to like they can provide value to people who don't want to go to the deep PvE and provide the like relics, and like so other people can actually craft the gear for them to be able to do PvE. So like in a good clan, you might have the crafter builders who actually are super happy about making the armors, and they have separate players who actually like happy to wear the gear and like go to the PvE adventures. And like obviously there's a lot of crossover, so plenty of people will want to do both, but this is not required. And there's like, again, like this meaningful interaction between these players. But the third prong is where we actually like start looking into the more like the societal level features, and that's actually like big part of the thing that we wanted to put more effort and energy into before, but we haven't really been able to. And that would be the kind of like the social glue of like allowing groups to actually come together and like really meaningfully do things that like really changes the sandbox, as you were like talking about earlier. So like enable people to like in some way form like change how you need to approach the whole of like how you play the game, because like you can join up with other players and affect the outcomes of like the entire game with other people. And that's basically all about what the feudal system, the other systems we're going to be putting into the game is about. And to go into Lyonesse, so the new Lyonesse is going to be like there's going to be a lot of gameplay related to the conflicts that we're allowing players to build. Some of it guided by the feudal system, some not. And so the new Lyonesse is actually a full-blown province. It's like 10 by 10 kilometers, so it's huge. And actually, this like divided in multiple zones because it's too big to be like hosted as a single place. And the version that we got in the builds now, actually, there's quite a few locations in that world area that are just placeholder. So if you actually go and explore, you're going to be finding places that very clearly are missing gameplay, and that's intentional because we did time to actually put the gameplay in, and we're actually like kind of like excited to hear about all the speculation for like what that might be in the future. But the key thing with the new area that we're going to be putting in with the same release is the enchantments, where there's two new different resource types that are exclusively available in Lyonesse. And what those allow you to do is craft. If the craft is consumables, that you can apply on any item with item power, and you can boost the item power of that item up. And the crafting those consumables is tied to alchemy and jewel crafting. So these two professions are getting a pretty important boost in the capability of what you can do. But applying that consumable actually doesn't take any skill. So you can actually sell those consumables in the market very effectively to any player, whether they have that crafting skill or not. So again, we've been looking into how do we ensure that the people who are able to craft this can do something meaningful, but also like making it, being able to pass the value on to other players as easy as possible. And getting the resources from Lyonesse is not gonna be easy. So they're on the ground, but not very prominent. And there's gonna be some NPCs out there who are actually like gathering the stuff from the ground that you're gonna be hunting to get bigger drops.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's very interesting. So then it sounds like with the new Lyonesse, 2.0 update, we're also getting more reasons to actually go to Lyonesse as well.
Yep.
With the addition of the enchanting, is this an entirely new crafting discipline? Like, is our journal going to be updated now with a new crafting path to level up?
No, this is all in jewel crafting and alchemy, as I explained. So basically, no new profession for this.
Got it.
And and the reason why we did it this way is the basic feedback for like having resources like pure iron be very prominent in Lyonesse earlier was that the people really dislike the idea of like having to go to the PvP area to level up the basic crafting skills that they have. And so what we wanted to do is provide a means to do something very meaningful for anyone who wants to get good gear, but detach that to some degree from the basic crafting profession. So again, you can progress in any one of the crafting skills without going to Lyonesse. You can get all of the gear in the game without having to go to Lyonesse, but like if you want the best gear available, you actually have to get the resources from Lyonesse to be able to like actually boost up the item power of these items to be the best possible versions of those items.
Got it.
Yeah, and you need the best from both worlds. You need them, yeah.
Yep.
And for these consumables, are these temporary boosts of power, or is it like you consume this item and once it's consumed, it's permanently increasing whatever piece of gear you apply it to?
Yep. It's permanent.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So I guess that kind of would be a really good point to transition a little bit into the combat system and where it is right now. In terms of things like you mentioned, it's going to boost item power, enchanting will. Are there any other types of effects or things that we can expect for enchantment to have an effect on other than just item power?
At least not in the first iteration of this, no.
Okay. And then in terms of for item power explicitly, where's the team kind of at with item power and how it's playing out in the game? It's been, I guess, about 2 months since we've had access to items that have item power. What's kind of the team's general feel in, directionally where giving items this scaling is, and you know, where are you planning to take it in the future?
I guess primarily like one thing that we so verse 3 was of course like a very big update for us, and it had a lot of work attached to it with like shipping this new compass for the first time with like all new spells, all new itemization, and kind of the crafting that to go with it to create all those new items. So we which meant that like we opted to basically go for as many spells as we could. Basically, we opted to ship like as many interesting sets as we could of these items. But what we wanted to do and what we'd like to do in the future is like for some of the uncommon or rare variants of items to have like a different spell or an additional spell on them. So right now, like once you discover an item, the uncommon and rare versions, all they do is like increase the item power, which is meaningful, but it's less exciting than that. In some cases, like it actually changes one of the spells or adds a new spell to the item. That plus like, and now maybe on a tangent, not necessarily talking about item power, like, you know, adding some of the other classes that we kind of talked about in the community, like bows, for instance. Like we'd like to address those, and we'd like to add new classes like caster DPS and stuff like that. But overall, IP, like item power for items, it's worked well for us, at least, because it just helps us. And we need to like, and we haven't fully taken advantage of it yet. For instance, we need to finish kind of revamping consumables and allowing them to also use item power. It just helps us a lot. Like Sulka said before, we have a small team. Helps us a lot, kind of orchestrate like all the massive amount of content that we have, and try to make sure that we at least have like some base balance that we can rely on.
Yeah, and one of the things. Oh, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I would like, I guess the like talking about leaks, so the other like item power related feature that we're looking at, and it's not going to be next release, but we're like likely to do this soon, is the like mastercrafted items. Or currently, like if you like succeed 100%, like close to 100% of manufacturing an item, it has no effect on the item itself. But what we're likely to do is like when you roll for that like super high level of success, actually you're going to be getting a like better quality version of the item that has higher IP on the item than what you would be crafting regularly. And again, with that, like if you want the absolutely best version of gear, like you're actually going to be wanting to get the best possible relics to get the best gear, and then actually getting the 100% success on it, and then like enchant it on top. And the one thing that will do is the some of the miracles that we currently have for boosting the crafting skills is going to be more meaningful even on the high end, because you want to maximize the probability of getting those high rolls whenever you craft the items. And that's kind of like partly missing right now, where on the hard to craft gear, like you kind of like don't, at a certain point you don't need those miracles anymore, but actually that mechanic is going to be more meaningful with that addition as well.
Very cool. And I guess kind of on that point, some of the keen observers with the most recent, you know, cloud update that we got, which by the way, those clouds look incredible. The lighting significantly improved in this last update that came out at the time of recording, like a day ago. But one of the keen observers will note that when you look at an item now, there are two different, we have obviously the arrows that are denoting the tier for an item, but then there's also now a diamond with uncommon taking up one line in the diamond, and then now rare taking up a second line. Does that mean that there's also players can expect in the future to see like these master crafted or higher tiers of you know, this rarity, I guess, if we'd call it?
Yeah. So actually, obviously what we didn't tell in the release notes is part of the reason why we've been redesigning the icons. And actually, by the way, like given the feedback, like the designer responsible for the icon design, like has already been updating the things based on feedback. But yeah, like just but we needed to redesign how we do the iconography on like the icons to actually be able to communicate the enchantments and the in the future the master crafting as well, where the previous layout basically just didn't have the space for everything, and the new designs actually accommodate for some features that are not in the game yet.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay, so going back, I guess, to Lyonesse and the update that is coming soon-ish, it sounds. What did the team look at when they were redesigning or coming up with the new map? Like, what kind of obviously it's a lot larger, which means that players are going to be more spread out, and it might be more difficult to go and find someone to, I guess, brutally murder in the middle of Lyonesse. But what were some of the design choices that were being made there, and what kind of gameplay do you think is going to come from it?
Sure. I guess like I'll tell you some, and then Peter, just feel free to tack on. So the larger areas, like, it's partly to balance the risk reward a bit better. If you as you probably noticed, like Lyonesse as it stands today, like there's people wearing gear who are like hunting for the miners to brutally kill them, and then there's the half naked miners who just don't want to risk any of the gear to be there. And that's partially because it's the current Lyonesse, while it's kind of big, it's still relatively easy to find people there, especially on the hotspots. And with the new larger area, we felt that it's going to be partially an answer to that risk reward question, where the extraction gameplay of actually jumping in, finding some of the good, especially the new resources, and jumping out, we wanted that to be in some way safer than with the current design. But also there's a bunch of designs that we're going to be starting to work on related to Lyonesse. So it's likely that there's going to be at least a couple of different ways of land capture in the area, and we needed a lot of space for that. Because if we are to have players coming in and capture spots in the world, we actually needed to have the space, and the old Lyonesse was definitely too small for that.
Land capture. That's a interesting term there, Sulka. So when we're talking about land capture, it sounds like there's a couple of things that are coming with this update, a couple of things coming down the line. It sounds like, with enchanting, having players come in naked is still inevitable. I would imagine players are still going to show up to Lyonesse, not want to risk anything, bring only their pickaxes or whatever else they need to gather. And it sounds like the new enchanting resource they might be able to find in lower quantities, scattered around the world of Lyonesse. But you're also trying to incentivize players to show up in actual gear with actual resources to go and fight these now NPCs that are, I guess, going around and also collecting this particular resource as well. So is that kind of the goal, is to try and pull players into situations where there's almost like what you said, this extraction mechanic, where you're going in, you're going after these resources, sometimes NPCs that have them, and then once you get it, your goal is to get the heck out of there as quick as possible. Is that kind of the mechanic that you're trying to aim for that?
The highest concentration would need you to actually combat.
Yep. And the NPCs you especially want to find is the ones who are the gatherers and bringing the resources too.
Okay, got it. And does anything happen when you have these particular types of resources on your character or on your person? What I mean by that is, for example, are you showing up on the map, or are people able to see you a lot better when you have this resource in your inventory?
So no, like not in the next release. The Having said that, there's been quite a lot of debate about making it so that some of the resources might actually change some of the engagement rules in the future. Where obviously as we've been saying all along, like we want logistics to be actually meaningful in the game, and right now we're allowing people to speed teleport with basically like with miracles, like no matter what you're carrying, that is subject to change. And like even in some cases might be that there's going to be resources that actually like even flag you for PvP, and that might even happen outside the Lyonesse, because we again the risk reward tools we have for like making it so that some things are actually like super valuable. Like we don't have too many tools in the like pack right now, and it's quite likely that we're going to be introducing new gameplay in the future that actually make it so that some of the stuff you bring into the Heartland is actually super valuable, because there is a significant amount of risk in actually producing it or like even getting it there.
So in terms of, let's go back to that wonderful term that you used, land claiming in Lyonesse. So what can you share about that with us today? And what do you believe some of the benefits? Obviously, you have land. Normally, you have to spend plot tokens in order to get land in the home valleys. What benefits? What are some of the costs associated with land claiming in Lyonesse?
Right. Okay. So I guess when we talk about the feudal system or like PvP overall, actually, like as I actually like said in design meeting today, like at least the way I'm thinking about it is we're like I'm not super focused on like just giving PvP in the sense of like two players meeting in the game, like just trying to brutally murder each other, because the interesting gameplay is actually about conflict, and conflict can mean a variety of things. Like it's not just the PvP. Like PvP is a really important part of it, and there's like unique things in PvP that like feel super good when you're doing it, and especially if you know how to do it right. But there needs to be like some broader conflict that you actually like causing, and there's broad like bunch of other things that we can do like to actually incentivize conflict with the players, and that might be more meaningful for people who don't want to do like the fighting parts of PvP. So one of the things we're likely to introduce is actually like economic competition between some of the land. So there's likely to be areas in Lyonesse where you're actually going to be bidding gold against the ownership of the place against other players. And there's going to be like good reasons why you want to do that as part of it. But we're also like secondly are obviously looking into ways of controlling areas with like actual PvP. And this would be like we were looking into making it so that a single group of players who are playing together will probably want to have like both types of land, but because the way to control or like having like ownership of that land is going to be a bit different, like it's likely to again be that you're going to want to have a group of players with different appetites, where like some are the hardcore PvPers who actually like really enjoy the PvP side, and some people probably want to optimize how well they can play the markets to actually maximize the amount of gold, so that actually you can play that part of the conflict as well as possible as well.
And in terms of, I know in the past we've heard mention of trade towns. Is this, I would imagine the economic side of this would probably be connected to trade towns. Is that something that's going to be exclusive to Lyonesse, or is this something that players can expect to see out in the wilderness or in normal home valley provinces?
I guess TBD. We'd love to have this quite broad. Again, like the when and how that's going to happen depends a bit on just the size of the team, like when we get around to implementing it.
Absolutely, part of Lyonesse is like one of the essentially what Sulka was explaining with the gold bidding of the land. Likely to make an appearance in the wilds, but it's TBD. It's based on like some different scenarios.
Okay, cool. And probably also based on player feedback as well, right?
Exactly, and experience just like running them and seeing how they get used and how they would fit.
Very, very cool. So then just to kind of dig a little bit deeper on this as well. So it sounds like there's two different scenarios that players can expect in the future in terms of PvP happening in Lyonesse, potentially some economic PvP that's going on, as well as some actual, let's get some swords and bang some shields together PvP as well. Will you be able to claim land via both of these pathways? And if you are claiming land, I would imagine that there's also a way that you can lose that land. What kind of things can you share today with kind of how that dynamic works, and how I guess a lot of players who have played other open world PvP games where you can have claims and stuff like that, one of the biggest concerns that players always have is, well, what happens if I'm offline and I can't defend this thing? Is there any systems in place that can help with that? How does that system work? Would love to learn more.
Yeah. We're not ready to share the details of that yet, but that's basically one of the most important things to tackle when creating a territory control dominion land claiming system. Is how so for both parties, both for the attackers and the defenders, when it comes to taking over the ownership of something, you need to kind of service the defender as well as possible, because if they don't show up, then there's never really going to be a fight. The attacker just shows up and takes it, right? And the attackers can be online 24/7, but the defenders might not. So that's one aspect of it. That the design that we're tackling with the feudal dominion. Another the other thing that's kind of related to this, which I think is kind of worth mentioning here as well, is that we want to make sure that smaller groups, small feudal organizations that love to PvP, love to work together, but don't really have the muscle to kind of own a piece of land or the commitment to do that they can still provide content for, that they can still see value in raiding and poking the big organizations. So raiding, essentially raiding them basically, which creates also a lot of fun content for the big organizations that don't see a lot of conflict because they're so big and nobody wants to attack them. So we want to make sure that that's a viable strategy for smaller organizations to not just go into and run into random PvP and collect enchanting resources, which is great, but also decide to attack a certain castle or certain tower or whatever, try to steal stuff from the bigger dogs.
Yeah, without the fear of immediately being stomped out by the big guys.
Removed from the game.
Yeah. Deleted, as some would say. So you mentioned castles and towers. I know way back when, a lot of players might not even remember this, but way back when, there was a point in time when the current Lyonesse was open to build in. Is there going to be player-made, player-built structures in this new system of claimable land, or is it going to be more static and stationary things that kind of already exist in the world in Lyonesse that players will be claiming? Is it going to be pre-populated or stuff that players are going to make as well?
So current idea is both. So because what's the point in controlling land in a medieval fantasy game if you can't build a castle, right? Or something that's you're proud of and shows that you live there. At the same time, we would like you to be able to build it with aesthetics in mind and not make some crazy honeycomb we don't want you to have to optimize it for PvP.
Murder box.
So yeah, exactly. So
with the
without thinking too much, but the idea, what at least the current thinking is that these locations that where you would wage PvP wars over territory would not be in those player built castles or houses, but rather in would not take place there, but in
Okay.
something that's more pre-built and like kind of suited for it. But rather the reward for the person who owns it is that they can then like build something cool.
Got it. So it
and
almost
and
build
actually get some
facilities and absolutely, and getting resources from it and
Yep,
getting
and
earning wealth by doing that.
and there's going to be like right now, like the Lyonesse that's launching is going to be in terms of PvP flagging, it's going to be the same as now, where you're like when you enter, you're safe. When you go in, you're flagged. But there is going to be like some of this is going to actually like provide the safe zones inside the Lyonesse as well. So you're not going to be PvP flagged necessarily like in every place. So if you do control a piece of land, you can actually like log in safely and
not die
so
immediately.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Peter, you muted.
Yeah.
Same with the trade towns, like they're sacrosanct.
Got it. So it's more of like player controlled areas that you are protected while you're in that specific area, but then in order to get control of that, or in order to get there, you're going to have to go through these danger zones in order to get there. In terms of, I know you mentioned, Peter, the, being able to, one, you have to control the area or something like that. So I would imagine maybe there's like a castle or something that you have to control the area of that castle in order to have. Are the effects of controlling something in Lyonesse, like that castle, ever going to be pushed over? Like, I own the Golden Company, my clan owns a castle in Lyonesse, which happens to be the Carey's castle, and now all of the sudden the Golden Company has dominion over all of Carey's. That would be some players are like reeling at the thought of that in the comment section, I can tell. But is that kind of the vision? Is there's going to be things that are done in Lyonesse that then affect gameplay in other areas of the game that might not be focused on PvP? Or are there going to be other routes for players to kind of elicit control and have conflict in these other PvE centric zones?
I don't have a clear answer to that. It's not 100% yes, not 100% no. So like I'm not totally ready to talk about it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm striking at a wait and see chord.
Basically, I mean, yeah. Well, or yeah.
Okay.
We can talk about it later, but it's yeah.
Perfect. So I guess kind of going into that, just to make sure that everyone watching kind of has a little bit more of an understanding, just to kind of top level say what we've learned so far. In the PvP zones, there's going to be at least two different types of areas that might be claimable by players. These like trade towns, which are more economically focused, that you're going to be kind of in bidding wars with gold, I would imagine, to procure. Yep. And the ownership of that is probably going to be based off of maybe like a time dependency type thing. So you're bidding for a certain amount of time that you control this trade town, whereas there might be another type of land that's claimable, like a castle or a tower, that once you claim it, you have to defend it or lose it kind of scenario. And there might be some kind of way or dynamic that means you don't have to be online 24/7, 365 to protect it. Maybe there's windows of time or something like that players would have to be online to defend it or not be online to defend it. Is that kind of the general feel of what's coming? Okay. So then that's all great. We've been dancing around the subject of the feudal system itself. We've talked a lot about Lyonesse. We've talked a lot about PvP as a whole, but where do we see the feudal system coming in terms of time? And then also, what does that system look like? I know we've mentioned knighthoods before, but also potentially baronies and kingdoms eventually as well. Is that all coming in the future?
So I guess the feudal system, it's maybe a bit misleading as a term, like because they were kind of bucketing a lot of these functionalities under that umbrella. But the core of this would be the ability to form the alliances, or you can join a feudal alliance as a player, and the design thinking around that is actually going to be, it's an organization that is on the side of the clans. So like it's not like the clans is gonna, they're not going to join the alliances. It's going to be the individual players. And obviously, like, we're assuming that vast majority of clans are going to be forcing all the members to join the same alliance, but this is not mandated. And what the feudal alliance will do is obviously change the PvP flagging for the players, like whenever PvP is on, and any of the mechanics that were just discussed regarding the ownership of the land is going to be obviously tied into these alliances. So in a way, like, shortly, the feudal system is about the ability to form the alliances, but then on the broader picture is all about the these alliances being tied into the varying systems for controlling parts of the world and interacting with the other alliances.
Very cool. And when it comes to people becoming kings, how does that work? Is that just like a size dependent? If you have X number of people, subscribing to your alliance, then, you're automatically a king? Or is there a more formalized process that's coming with that?
So the current design thinking, I guess, is there is a mix, or absolutely, you need to have a certain number of followers or like people in your like organization. And we're looking into the feudal organization actually being something where you actually kind of need to serve the population of people in the alliance to actually have their enable them to like want to be in the organization. So getting your organization to be large enough for you to actually like claim the title of king means that you need to actually be like pretty good at managing that. But yeah, like on top of that, I would say it's quite likely that the king title itself will have other requirements. So you can't just basically whip up 300 people and get them to join like instantly, like claim the title.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to have like some streamer come on to the game and be like, "Hi, 1,000 viewers. We're making a kingdom today," and then just instantly get to the top and stay there for however long they're in the game for.
Yeah. Although, like, if you have 1,000 people working for you, it's going to be significantly easier.
Understandably,
you need a combination of both. Like, it's not going to be free to be anointed a knight or a baron or a king. But yeah.
Now, in terms of becoming a knight, in past times where articles have been published and stuff like that, it seemed like there was going to be some kind of tie-in with the religious system in Pax Dei. It felt like, I know we've been focused a lot on the major changes that are coming in the coming months with PvP in the feudal system. Is there plans to also be following that on, or are there changes and developments coming with, grace and how that's acquired? And is there some kind of tie-in still with, players who are really focused on, being priests basically? And, is that how you become a knight? Is there, how does that process work?
Do you want to touch that a little?
Sure.
Or the current design thinking?
Yeah. So I can't talk about like timeline or exactly when this lands or anything, but the design thinking around this has always been that. So you have, like Sulka was talking about the groups earlier. So we have a clan is essentially your family. You have people that you trust, you enjoy being around with, you enjoy collaborating with. You have clans of different sizes, and but ultimately that's usually the group which you trust the most and which you bank on, and they bank on you, and you use to organize different projects, like going to a dungeon or building a city, or forming other social groups. And the other two major social groups that are kind of the meta groups. One is the feudal organizations, which is like highly competitive, and if you have, you might have a feudal organization that is like the alliance of like 4 knights and all of their followers. If one of the knight leaves, he might leave with all of his followers and like create a new alliance with some other knights, etc. It's very competitive. Of course, like the kind of the involves, of course, PvP, but also, people who are kind of supporting the alliance and, all the economic things that go into it. And then the other group is the church and the religious systems. And the idea there is that you and people you're working with, you found a church and you have like priests and deacons and like other kind of maybe sort of other kind of people who hold like positions of power in that religious group, and you want to earn as many followers as possible. Like you want everyone to join your church, because the amount of grace that people earn within the church, like that have joined that church, the people who run it. Let's say you are the priest of this church, you earn a kickback of grace. So you're earning a lot of grace. Now, what you do with that grace may ultimately kind of decide whether or not people actually want to be part of your church, or if they go to a different church. So, because you can either do very costly miracles or do very costly actions that kind of benefit everyone, like benefit the greater good, or you can be very selfish and mostly spend it on yourself and your friends and allies. And one of those like very costly miracles that we talked about is the anointment of knights, either like a one-time or like an overtime thing that you have to do. So you'd have to bank or rely on the church to kind of anoint the knights that you or your clan or your friends want. So you try to, so most likely you anoint knights that, are very active and are very, socially apt and like personable and like have, and are like good leaders for your future feudal organization.
Got it. And then
that has been the design thinking. Exactly what the first iteration is going to be and how knights get kind of introduced may end up being exactly that, or it may be a little bit different if we have to, since we don't have the churches yet and the kind of the extremely wealthy priests.
Is that something that players can expect with the feudal system coming online, or is there going to be some kind of initial implementation of the feudal system that doesn't have that connection yet with the church?
It's very likely that we'll have a connection.
Okay.
From the start.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, well, the church sounds awesome. That sounds very exciting. I know there's a lot of people that are going to be very excited about that. On the same topic, so we have these like 3 pillars. Just really quick question. I know before there's been talk or mention of like professional organizations, like guilds, some would say.
Yeah.
Is that something that's still in the books for the future? It sounds like that maybe is getting reprioritized for further down the line kind of thing, but is that still something that's in the books?
It's still part of the vision, but it's always been lower in the priority than the religious system, like the religious groups and the feudal alliances.
Okay.
They're so core to kind of the vision and where we want the game to go. But yeah,
Very
guilds
cool.
would fit very well into what we have. But yeah, they're definitely lower.
Yeah, definitely. I just more so wanted to ask that because I know some players are very excited for that as well, and I wouldn't want them to feel left out in this. But on the topic of other things that are coming as well, one of the big changes that a lot of people got really sad about with verse 3 was we had all of these really cool outfits that players could customize themselves with, different types of armor, different types of, there were people that were, joining us on dungeon runs that were explicitly going to Plisson so they could get that one, really cool robe that was there, or something like that. And that kind of disappeared with verse 3. And, a lot of the times the armor looks the same now. What can you tell us about the future of character customization and RP and those aspects of the game that are coming?
So we're definitely looking at bringing some of the RP clothing back. We just ran out of time doing that for verse 3. And so, rest assured that is a thing we want to fix, because we do want to support the RP community, and being able to dress up for that is part of this. And actually some of the simplification we did for how the slots work in some ways actually make that easier as well, because we now have some slots that are very explicitly don't give you buffs, and as such we like to introduce more clothing back into the game, and we're actually just talking about that today. So
nice.
Yeah, we were very sad that was a side effect of the in verse 3. We had to for technical reasons, we had to re-implement all of the wieldables and wearables, all the clothing and all the weapons and everything, and all of the recipes for that. The revamp was just too big where we could kind of port things over. We had to re-implement all of it, and we, like Sulka said, we just ran out of time. We couldn't do it in the same update. So very sad about that. We want to remedy it as soon as possible.
And I guess one of the asides to this is almost a personal question on my end. It's been a while since we talked last, and there was this whole conversation that I'm gonna try and not break into in this interview of monetization. But specifically, there was something that was not mentioned that I think would benefit Mainframe in a large sense, specifically from my pocketbook, which would be a cosmetic store, or the ability to, down the line, be able to purchase some of these types of RP clothing or more, differentiating sets. Is that something that's in the plans, as we're getting closer to release? Is that something that Mainframe's looking into, or is it something down the line?
So I guess at least so far, the discussion regarding cosmetics sales has more or less been that we're unlikely to do a lot of it, or at least the shape of cosmetics that we'd be looking into should be something that doesn't compete against the crafter economy with the players, because right now big part of the game is actually going after all those resources and being able to craft something that other players care about deeply. And if we started selling anything ourselves using microtransactions that actually competed against that economy, we'd be doing a huge disservice to the player base, because we'd be actually devaluing the gameplay, or all the time that they're putting into the game. So I at least right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be very likely that we would be selling RP clothing but actually just instead of just bringing it back as something that you can craft and spend time on.
I can totally respect that. In that particular vein, of clothing and cosmetics and stuff like that, do you expect that a lot of the desirable clothing is always going to be the highest tier, highest rarity, thing that gives a spell? Or are you also thinking in the frame of RP clothes that aren't actually giving you any kind of magical benefit, but they are giving you the rule of cool benefit, and also making those things that players need to go out and search for and really get to acquire kind of thing? The example that always comes to mind, and I'll leave a little spot here to talk about dying as well, but in the original Guild Wars MMO, there was black dye, and it would cost platinum in order to get this black dye, because it was everyone wanted it, and it was this rare type of resource that would drop. Is that kind of, maybe not with dying, but I do want to talk about dying here in a second. But is there going to be rare pieces of RP clothes that people want to go out and get, mostly just because they're collectors and value that type of thing? Is that going to be content that you're planning in the future?
So I think it's quite likely that some of the RP clothing that is making it in is going to be tied into resources that are pretty hard to get. Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Would be the short of it.
and it's and of course, I mean, it's going to be like the value of that clothing is, of course, both going to be determined by its scarcity and just like how much people actually like them. It's going to be like how much people actually desire it. It's always hard to predict the latter. You can't know exactly what people are really going to like, but we can control the scarcity, and I think we can just as well we can both. I imagine we'd both have like extremely scarce like resources for kind of cool clothing at a lower tier, like at tier
1,
2 or
yeah,
tier 1 and tier 2, just as for tier 5, because they're not always gated behind PvE. They can also just be gated behind luck and just finding it.
Yep. And one of the things that people in the community have jokingly referred to Pax Dei after verse 3 is they call it Pax Grey, because a lot of the armor seems to be a little gray or black and gray, a little bit more of a somber mood about it. With regards to dying, since we're on the topic of RP clothes and customization, how's that system coming along? Is it something that players can expect to see in the next couple of months?
So unlikely in the next couple of months, but at least the RP clothing we're looking into is a lot more colorful. So
perfect. Yeah, I guess it would be kind of weird to be, seeing people running around in a breastplate that's purple or something like that. But at least for the RP clothing being a little bit more, I mean, maybe it would actually be kind of fun. The purple knight. But okay, very cool. Yeah, thank you for answering that. What other things are there? There's a couple of other topics I think that I wanted to, spin back around to that I was saving for, kind of the end with regards to PvP. But in the coming months, as Mainframe is gearing up for release, what are some of the features that Mainframe that both of you are the most excited for, and what do you think? Maybe we'll redress this after they've come out, and we can do a post analysis on this. But like, what are the features that you think players are going to like the most, and what features are you most excited to get in the hands of players?
Well, at least excitement-wise, like I'm totally like it's all the social stuff, because we've been talking about it for so much over the years, and we think that's going to be like one of the key elements to actually like make the game so much more interesting. And yeah, so I actually like can't wait for the releases to actually like launch like all of this. Everything we just discussed regarding like what the feudal systems can do, and like what the religious systems are going to be doing to the community, where suddenly like you need to care about like people in the same heartland a lot more than maybe the other areas of the world as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I'm excited about a bunch of like small revamps that we're doing for something that's been annoying me since before early access, and I think there's a bunch of like smaller things that players are going to be really excited about, but it's going to be it would be too presumptuous of me to like say that you should be excited about something. But I am definitely it's hard to compete with like, the new Lyonesse, the feudal organizations, and the religious groups, because those are kind of the things that I've been thinking of and we've been thinking of for so many years. It was kind of like, it's like when we finally did the MVP for the market stalls and they made it into the game. They weren't perfect, but like finally you could trade. That felt like really good, and we still just have like the MVP of like the grace and the miracles, but that felt also really good because it was just something that we've been planning for a very long time. We are still kind of iterating and adding stuff to both of those features, and I think the feudal alliances and the religious groups are kind of those kinds of pillars were like, oh, finally we and the new combat and the having actual classes that you can spec into with different items also felt like a milestone like that, where the game definitely transformed, took like a big leap forward, at least in my mind.
Yeah, there's some of the smaller stuff or that we're working on, things like there's a food revamp that we've been looking into, and like we'd love to put it out soon, like no ETA yet, because it's actually like balancing it out well is tricky, but like actually making the foods more like relevant and giving you more diverse set of buffs that actually like you want to care about like a lot more deeply than what we had before. I'm sure a lot of players will absolutely love it. And the feudal thing.
Yeah, and so basic tutorialization as well. We should also mention that, like, just to show some love to our new players who are like, of course, always going to be very confused without any tutorialization.
That's one of the things we're working on, and I'm sure people who like will love it the most are not playing the game even yet. So, but in terms of the players loving, for example, the Feudal System, I think there's like the one way to think about it is that I'm sure some players will absolutely love the new ways of engaging with the community, and especially like in the conflict, there's people who are like really drawn into any gameplay with conflicts. But I think maybe the more important metric is going to be how many people do feel that it's a new interesting way of playing the game, and that's a bit different from liking the feature, because we often play games because we find the experience compelling, and there's some deeper urge to engage with the game, and it's a bit different from fun, where you can have a piece of fun by looking at cat video on TikTok that take 15 seconds, and it's super fun, but it's not compelling in the way of us wanting to engage with those cat videos for every single day. And what we're looking to do is something that is actually deeply engaging and interesting, and you just want to be part of for a very long period of time. And so it's a slightly different mentality from one.
Definitely. And kind of on the topic of making things interesting, one of the biggest changes that happened since the last time we talked was this improvement to the combat system. We had a whole handful of new spells added to the game, a lot of changes there. I know earlier in the interview you also mentioned the addition of a magic DPS or some kind of range DPS class, as well as giving bows the love that they deserve as well. What is the current status of combat, and where are you kind of feeling that's at? Are we gonna be able to expect new spells coming in the near future, or in the next couple of months, or is that kind of at a spot where you're happy with it for now, and you'll address it at a later time and all of that?
I don't think we prioritized new spells, combat spells, in the next couple of months. So I'm pretty certain we haven't. But I mean, the patches since verse 3 have been we've been trying to both fix bugs and polish, and just make the ones that we have already just better, and making sure that some of them that are overpowered are been nerfed, and some of them, some of the spells that haven't been used very much, just just balancing basically. Yeah, giving them some love. We will continue to do that as needed, and as the players ask for it, especially. When the time comes. I mean, I just mentioned those two kind of at the top of my head, because I think those are kind of the big, a couple of at least very obvious kind of omissions in the right now. We don't have any damage casters, and the bows are they're fun, but they don't have don't really define a role per se.
Yeah.
So when the time comes to do that, we'll be sure to let the players know.
Yeah.
We're not
and yes, while Peter said that we're not probably going to be introducing a lot of new mechanics into the combat in the next couple of months, we definitely will be doing that, because as you know, it's a matter of time before people learn the mastery of the current systems to the point where it starts to be a bit boring, and we do want to keep shuffling the meta to some degree, and introducing new ways of participating into the combat to actually keep it fresh. So there's definitely commitment to that. It's just we're putting some of the time into other things in the game right now.
Yeah. So on that freshness topic, because I know we are getting close to ending, there have been a lot of gates that exist in Pax Dei's maps around all of the different, Home Valley provinces. What are Mainframe's plans for those gates to maybe become less broken and more open in the future? And I would imagine a lot of this, because I believe the plan hasn't changed from Gallia being Gallia at release, and release is coming. But what are kind of the plans for expansion in Pax Dei and giving players new regions to explore and new maps to, there's some maps that have like 6 gates or more on them, I feel like. So what's the plan for growing Pax Dei as we get to release and beyond, and are there any updates there that the team can provide?
Probably no updates there. I guess the one thing, like design thinking at least, I could maybe shed a bit light into is we've been talking about expanding the world both outward, as in basically what you were asking for, like when it's going to be the new world area, open world areas outside of the maps that we have now, but also inwards, where there's sites where there's some plans for potentially adding more dungeons, and there's other mechanics that we've been looking into that would allow actually more expansive areas inside of the game, like inside the maps that we have now. And obviously making Lyonesse bigger is one way of doing this, where it's kind of the same, but it's actually a huge new world area to explore. And there's that's not the only idea of how to actually enable you to go somewhere different. Mm-hmm. Even inside the current map. So and the once it comes when the time to actually expand the world the next time comes, I actually wouldn't dare to speculate whether it's going to be a world area outside of the current map, or it is actually going to be some way of accessing something new within the current maps.
I have to ask because you mentioned it. I was in Dear Listen last night, and a lot of players, when you get to the very top of Dear Listen, there's a really big wall that looks like it deserves to be open at some point in time. Are we referring to potentially different areas that are accessible by dungeons when you say by expanding current content as well?
Yeah, so there's dungeon ideas, and but also that's not the I guess we haven't spread that much of the lore into the game yet, and that's another area where we'd love to put more content into. And there's some plans for that, just no ETA. But there's the actual world lore history that has been written, does make references to other realms of the world, and there's planned designs for how we could introduce those into the game too. So not only dungeons that you can access from portals.
Got it.
Other realms.
Got it. The giant druidic circles, the Stonehenges that have been updated recently as well, I would imagine would be included in that.
And there's the new Lyonesse has some other hints as well, environmental storytelling in form of some pretty big trees and other areas.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, one last thing that I wanted to touch on, because it's near and dear to my own heart. When are we getting Dueling? Is that something that we can expect in the future?
Yeah, I was gonna mention it because you were asking for things that people are excited about, but then you guys switched the subjects. That is definitely because we're working so much on. We're introducing Lyonesse and Enchanting and feudal organizations, and giving players more and more reasons to do PvP, and kind of making that more exciting. That kind of goes hand in hand. That's never really gonna work really well unless people can actually practice and kind of theory craft, and just get people also who are not accustomed to doing PvP, just allowing them to actually, just do practice and like understand what it's all about and like understand how it works without too much being on the line. And so dueling, and we have at least like a couple of kind of PvP practice features that we want to introduce, which is like dueling and adding like combat dummies that you can build and whack to test different abilities on in combat.
I love it.
But dueling has been listed as one of the highest priority by PvP features for the reasons Peter said, because if you don't get to practice and like Lyonesse ends up being the first place where you experience PvP in the game, like it's kind of brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal school.
The school of hard knocks, as they would say.
Yes.
Cool. Any other things that we should know about that we haven't talked about yet that the team's interested or excited to share?
We touched on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Winter is coming.
That makes me feel like I did my job as an interviewer, making sure that I, pulled out every last bit that I was going to get today. I guess the last question is, with regards to when are these things, when can players expect to get their hands on these changes? I know there's a couple of segmentations of stuff. Currently sounds like the full release plan is still December-ish timeframe. But any changes, updates, anything that the team wants to share on that?
So we're trying to figure out how to drop this as individual smaller updates over the rest of the year. But there's literally like no schedules that we want to communicate at this point because we don't know.
Yep.
But the ongoing, basically the development process wise, what we're trying to do is figure out maybe how to break the releases into slightly smaller chunks, so we would be able to do more frequent updates rather than like you needing to wait for like 4 months to get something cool. And obviously some of these systems are pretty big, so splitting it into something small that still feels meaningful is really hard. But like we'd prefer to make a bit more frequent updates if there's any way that we can do that. But like it's still TBD because the difficulty there is simply like the just QAing the end of the release, so we don't launch huge amount of bugs. Like always takes time, and we might need to patch a release, and then like if the patching takes a week and QA takes a couple of weeks, that already means that like there's still like that adds up very quickly. And so like no promises yet on like how fast we can get into faster cadence, but we're really trying to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time. We're at over an hour and 15 minutes since we started this interview. So thank you again for taking the time. I know many of the people, members of the community, really appreciate you all taking the time to come out and talk. I mean, I know I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming and talking to me on the channel, but appreciate the openness and talking about your vision as well as what we can expect from Pax Dei in the coming months. And it sounds like a very exciting time is ahead for Pax Dei, especially with getting more core pillars to the game, something that a lot of people, myself included, have been really interested in, were all of these other social dynamics, knighthoods, the feudal system, the religious system. It sounds like things are finally starting to come together, and I'm excited for it, and I know a lot of other players are going to be excited for it too. It's going to add a whole new dimension to the game. So thank you for coming onto the channel and sharing all of that today.
Thank you.
I hope we can get you back as things progress. Maybe we can, feature some of these things coming out, and if you ever are looking to talk, the right place to go. So thank you again for joining us today.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Always nice to talk.
Yeah.